Hi, everybody. It's Chef Rob again. I sure appreciate everybody subscribing to and supporting and liking the channel. I really appreciate it. Today, deep dish sourdough pizza. So it's really pretty simple. I don't necessarily know what to do with my starter. When I go to feed it, I sometimes discard it. So today I'm just going to be using 100 grams of my starter directly from the fridge. And then I'm going to add to that 310 grams of water. I'm going to add a little sugar in the form of some applesauce, but you can put a spoonful of sugar or brown sugar or honey or whatever you'd like. It's going to feed the starter really well and make things wonderful in the dough. I'm then going to add about 500 grams of a good hard flour, hard white flour, or bread flour, or type 00 flour. And you're going to mix that up until it forms a ball of dough. And then I'm going to take that ball of dough and I'm going to actually put it into a bowl to rise on the counter for 3 or 4 hours. And then I'm going to punch it down and put it back in the bowl for another 3 or 4 hours. And this is what I'm left with is a nice ball of dough to work with. So I'm going to take that out and put it on my counter and flour that surface so that I have the ability to work on this fairly easily. And I'm going to get my rolling pin and roll this out not too thin, to about 1/3 of an inch or so, maybe 1 millimeter, 1 centimeter, I mean. So you'll take that, and it's still got some spring to it. You can see it pull back in, and I typically go from the center outwards, and I want to make sure that it's large enough to fit over the top of and exceed the edges of my cast iron pan that I have well oiled. Flip that onto the back of your fingers so you don't pierce through it, and that's my cast iron pan. Again, there's a tablespoon or so of olive oil in there, and you'll want to coax your dough into the bottom of your cast iron pan and let it overrun the top, which we'll use to form our crust a little bit later. But just kind of let it fall naturally into the bottom. You can trim some off if you need, but I just kind of perch it there on top of the edge of the pan, and then we'll get stuff to put in it. You can kind of do whatever you want. I'm going to do 5 different cheeses. This is some provolone, and then I've got some low moisture mozzarella that I'm going to put in next. But you can kind of do whatever you want. You can put, with Chicago style deep dish pizza, the cheese is, interestingly enough, on the bottom always. So it's kind of in reverse order. So I'll put some provolone and some mozzarella down, and then I've got some mild Italian sausage here, and I'm going to put a layer of that. But you could put pepperoni or ground beef or ham or vegetables, mushrooms and green peppers and things. But I'm doing a layer of mild Italian sausage, and then I've got some homemade marinara that I'm going to put on next. And you can, everything's kind of exaggerated in deep dish style pizza. There's lots of toppings. So you'll see that I put quite a bit of meat in there. I'm going to put quite a bit of sauce. It's already cooked down to where it's a not very watery sauce, and you don't want much water in there. So cook your sauce down. And then I'm going to tear up some basil, some fresh basil, and put that in there. My sauce already has some garlic and onion and salt and pepper and some oregano. But this is some fresh basil, and I'll tear that up in a pretty generous layer of that. And then I'm going to top it off with 3 other cheese blend. An Italian cheese blend of pecorino, romano, and some parmesan. But that's my layer of fresh basil, and I'll spread that in and tap that down a little bit and make sure that I've got enough sauce to cover everything, and I may even put a little bit more in there. Yep, that's going to make all the difference. And here's that other 3 cheese blend. So if you're keeping score, there's the provolone, the mozzarella, the romano, the pecorino, and the parmesan now. And then you can use that layer of dough that you've let overrun the sides, and you can shape it into any kind of a crust that you want. You can fold it back over on the pizza itself. You can crimp it into a little pie, a fluted pie shape. What I'm doing is cutting it into little strips that I'm going to spin and kind of braid back on themselves. It's a pretty look, but really anything works at this point. You can roll it down a little bit and make a crust out of it, or like I say, you can actually just cut off what you don't want and leave it at that. But like I said, I'm going to cut this into little 1-inch sections and twist it back on itself, and it comes out a pretty good look. Being as thick as this is, you're going to need to put this in an oven for a rather long time. I think I had mine in there for about an hour and 15 minutes or so. I want to put it in a cold oven and then turn it on to 350, and I'm going to put it in the lowest rack setting of the oven, because I want the lower element to be heating up that cast iron on the bottom so that it toasts the crust rather than gets it soggy. So you'll see that I open my oven here and I put it in the very bottom shelf, placed in the bottom of the oven, and I turn on the oven for the first time at that point and let it come up to temperature. You see that I moved it into the top of the oven after it preheated, and it's starting to cook. I put a probe thermometer in it. You're going to want to get it to about 200 degrees, and that's when it's going to be done. Let it sit on your counter and rest for about 20 or 30 minutes before you cut into it and serve it to your family. Enjoy!